We just finished another holiday season, and maybe your family's eyes glazed over when you talked about your genealogy work. In this video, I'm going to explain how you can get your family engaged with your research, how to package it as a story that they are going to want to listen to, and how simple it could really be. I'll give you some examples of what it's like to be boring when you're doing your genealogy sharing and what it's like to be exciting. My name is Denyse Allen, and I have pioneered the use of AI for genealogy research and family history writing, and have the most read newsletter on this topic, which you can find in the link below, and it's totally free for you to follow, as well as all these videos on YouTube, and I hope you subscribe. Here is your genealogy research. It's in, let's imagine it's in boxes. It's probably on your hard drive on your computer. And there are tons of files. And if your family was to stand there and look at it, they'd be scratching their heads trying to figure out what's important, what matters, and what is it that's in here. And when you talk to your family about it, I mean, this is what I do. I tend to talk about the stuff. Records I found, how long it took me to find it, what kind of data was in that record, and how excited I was that I broke through another brick wall. And guess what? My family doesn't care about brick walls, and they don't care about all the files and records that I've accumulated. And maybe yours doesn't either. So when we say, oh, I found this person on the 1920 census, and it broke through this information that, I couldn't find, this DNA match, your family's like, oh no, am I going to end up in school listening to a lesson about DNA, centimorgans, and, correlation of data between different things? So it's really a big turnoff. Now, the problem is in the format in which you're delivering it. So we're going to talk about that format today, how to deliver your research in a format that family, non-genealogists, let's just call them, people that aren't, keyed into the genealogy hobby, can digest it and appreciate it and fall in love with it the way you are in love with your research. So let's talk first about this format issue and do this in two examples. I found Grandpa on the 1880 census. Now, you'll give him some facts around that, like his age, where he was living, who he was living with, the family, and maybe you'll even go through and figure out the occupation, right? So it's a bunch of data, and you might share that. Now, here is the second way to share that information about the 1880 census. We're going to say, instead of saying, I found Grandpa on the 1880 census, we're going to say, Grandpa came to landed in New York City with $8 in his pocket because you did the extra work and you found that immigration record. And he came from Poland. And his first job was, and you'd give the job, which would probably be a factory job, the factory that he worked in. So just picture these two different stories. Instead of saying, here's this bunch of data from 1920, you share a story of Grandpa landing in New York City with $8 in his pocket and then heading off to work in a factory. Now, those facts produce images. We can imagine what $8 looks like. We can imagine it in a pocket. We can imagine the ship, and we can imagine the factory work. So even young people who aren't necessarily, into history the way we are, can picture these things because we have mental pictures of what all those facts are. We don't have a lot of mental pictures for what it's like to be, let's say, 18 in 1880. We can't imagine what the clothes are, maybe. We can't imagine the other family members and how old they are and what the town looked like because we don't have a mental picture of a town or a city in 1880. And we might not even have a mental picture of an exact occupation in 1880. But if we just step back and broaden it a little bit, it becomes a little more interesting. So let's get into an even better example with using AI and how people use AI wrong in terms of getting this story effect. So, what a lot of people do with AI is they will give it their entire data set that they have on a person and ask AI to write a biography or write the story of this ancestor. And this is what usually comes up. AI goes through and dutifully figures out and finds all the facts that the person has accumulated on someone, and they put it together into what AI calls a story, or maybe it's a biography, right? And it looks exactly like this. So we've got the name of the person, when they were born, their birth order, what their parents did, and it's very vanilla, right? It kind of reads like an obituary. You know, Thomas Edward Callan was born in 1918 in Dayton, Ohio, the second of 4 children in a working class family. And then it goes on. In 1941, following the attack on Pearl Harbor, he enlisted into the U.S. Army and was assigned to an infantry unit. When he returned home, he got married, he had children, he worked a steady job in a manufacturing plant. And then in the 1960s, his health began to decline due to the physical labor, and he died in 1970 at the age of 52. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with this. This is a biography. It captures all the details, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. But it's boring to most people. To us as genealogists, it's great because it's got all the facts in there, and we know we've dotted our I's and we've crossed our T's. But for a person who is not familiar with Thomas, it's kind of dry. So here is the other way that you could tell this that would make a difference to your family and to, well, quite frankly, preserving your genealogy work. So instead of starting Thomas's story at the beginning, you want to start it with a turning point, right? And this is going to be your choice as the family historian to pick what is the turning point in Thomas's life. Now, I don't know Thomas, you don't know Thomas, but chances are that D-Day involvement, his signing up, enlisting voluntarily in World War II to go fight in that long war and participate in absolutely one of the most intense days of military battles in the history of the world, D-Day. That was probably a turning point for Thomas in his life and affected every decision that he made after that, you know, in terms of getting married and having kids and how he conducted his life. So start with that. Instead of starting at the beginning, share the story of what it was like to land on D-Day. If you've seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, you probably have a pretty good mental picture of what that was like. The director of that movie went to extensive details of how to actually make that landing look realistic. You can talk about the smoke. You can talk about, the bombs going off. You can talk about the gunfire, what it was like to be in the battle that day. You could talk about the friends that he probably lost because so many men died. And then where he ended up, his unit, and where he ended up at the end of that day. If he was wounded, if he very well could have been, and everything. And then pivot Thomas's life around this one event. Just pick this one event and share that. Now, am I telling you to ignore the rest of your Thomas's story? Absolutely not. That biography of Thomas, which AI wrote, honestly, quite frankly, genealogy websites are going to be writing those for us at this point, and it really doesn't lend anything. We're not adding anything to the process if we're just doing the same thing that a genealogy website's doing. So you want to add in the part that you think matters to Thomas and share that with your family. Do the historical research for this and really paint a picture of what this pivotal moment was likely was for him, and watch how their eyes light up in that moment. All of a sudden, your family members, that person that you give this story to, can picture themselves in Thomas's situation and what it must have been like to stand on a beach in a foreign country and be bombed. Right? Like, this is crazy. As they say, the kids today can't imagine this. So that is really the point of what you are doing as a family historian. You are taking this pile of stuff that you've collected and putting it through a process where you have finished stories and actually family legacy. Now, I teach how to have AI help you with this process. And I make sure that you don't sound like a robot at the end of it, that the thing that you share has you in it, and it's created for the people that you love and care about and customized just to them. That is the point of what we're doing, is having the stories and the facts and who we are live on in the next generation. And when it comes to our family and creating these family legacies and these finished stories, we can't control if they are going to care about it. And that's the truth. I mean, it's a harsh truth, but we really can't control if they're going to care or not. But we can do our best in making the stories customized to them, to drop them in the middle and tell them the best part of the story or the thing that really stands out about that ancestor. And we can make sure to have it packaged in a way, in this format, that they can access it when they are ready, that it is there for them, and it is in a way that they can appreciate and go back to and really fall in love with. We certainly don't want to leave our family with this. So if you are interested in turning more of your genealogy stuff into stories that your family loves, look for the link in the description and watch my upcoming videos where we go deeper into this process of telling the story. And remember, don't be afraid to start in the middle at that turning point and the best part of the story and really get your family hooked on your family history.